Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. I was chopping cilantro when she said it. No build-up, no apology, just a sentence that dropped into our kitchen like a brick in a glass sink. I'm moving in with Anthony. We're having a baby together. My hand kept moving the knife, slow and steady, like my brain didn't want my body to panic. The hum of the fridge sounded louder. A neighbor's dog barked. I set the knife down, wiped my hands on a dish towel, and looked at her the way you look at a stranger who's wearing your favorite sweater. "Congratulations," I said, plain voice, even tone. It surprised both of us. She blinked like I'd misread the script. Maybe she expected tears, a scene, an argument that could be turned into proof later. See, we just weren't working. Instead, I picked up my phone and pulled up the jeweler's online portal. The ring's protection plan carried my name. I tapped the cancel option, hit submit, and placed the phone on the counter. A little tone announced the confirmation. "What are you doing?" she asked. She hadn't moved from the doorway. Her arms were crossed, left hand covering the new thin necklace I hadn't asked about, and she hadn't offered to explain. "Tidying up," I said. When she just stared, I walked to the hall closet, pulled down the envelope with the car title, also mine, and set it on the counter beside her handbag. "You'll want to Uber," I added. "We're square on the lease through the end of the month. I'll cover it. I don't want anything that isn't actually mine." Her mouth opened, then shut. I remember thinking, say something kind, and I might crack. Say something cruel, and I'll lock every door inside me. She chose silence, which somehow felt worse. She tried to gather words. I tried not to gather memories. Our first winter walk, breath turning to clouds, the way she laughed at tiny spoons, the plans we drew on napkins at cheap diners. "You don't even want to talk?" she said finally, like she was offering me a favor. "Talking is for problems we intend to solve," I replied. "You've solved yours. You moved the pieces without me. You can finish the puzzle without me too." I should have asked if she was sure, if the timeline made sense, if the story matched the numbers. But my heart had already started the quiet retreat that saves a person from begging. I went to my laptop, opened the document where I keep account info, and began the sort of work you do when you've decided to survive. Email passwords changed. Banking logins secured. Streaming services booted all devices. 2-factor everywhere. I kept my breathing slow, counting to 4 when I inhaled, to 6 when I exhaled, like the therapist from years ago had taught me after my father died. I didn't feel anger. I felt cold competence, a winter window sealed shut. She followed me from room to room, a ghost haunting a house she hadn't left yet. "Anthony is excited," she said at one point, aiming for happy. It landed as theater. I nodded the way you nod at a coworker's presentation about something you won't use. "Where did you meet him?" I asked, not because I wanted the story, but because I wanted the facts. Facts are handles. You can carry facts without cutting your palms. "Through work," she said too quickly. The word hung there. A meeting, then drinks, then mistakes that didn't feel like mistakes until consequences arrived with a heartbeat. I could hear the shape of it even if she wouldn't draw the lines. I didn't ask whether the child was mine. She would have offered that clarity if it was. She hadn't. I opened the shared calendar and removed the color-coded categories we'd built together. Meals, bills, weekend hikes, family visits. Each deletion felt like pulling a nail from wood. When she saw the calendar go blank, something in her face changed. She wasn't expecting logistics to hurt. I unplugged the spare key from the magnet under the table and slid it across to her. "That's for your new place," I said softly. "This one stays here." She looked at the key as if it had betrayed her. I kept moving. The engagement ring had its own small box in the bedroom. I placed the ring inside, closed the lid, and put it beside the envelope with the car title. "If you want to keep the ring as a memory, that's your choice," I said. "It's paid for. I just canceled the plan. No point insuring something that no longer has a future with me." "You're being cruel," she said. The words shook. "I'm being tidy," I answered. "Cruel would be stories, screenshots, calls to your mother. Instead, I'm cleaning up after a spill we both know wasn't an accident." She sat on the edge of the bed and pressed her palms to her eyes. I could see the math happening behind her fingers. Rent differences, one-income grocery lists, rearranged friendships, named and unnamed risks. Somewhere in that math was a man who promised her a fresh start and a baby who turned everything into now. I ordered us both dinner out of habit, then canceled it. She watched me do it. We stood in a room full of objects we'd picked together and felt none of them belonged to us anymore. The plant by the window drooped. The print over the dresser tilted half a degree. Small disorder everywhere. We didn't argue. It almost annoyed me, the dignity of it. She gathered a backpack and some clothes. I put her toiletries into a grocery bag, taped it shut, and wrote her name on the tape so she'd feel it was a handoff, not a theft. When she called a ride, the app estimated 6 minutes. Those 6 minutes stretched. At the door, she said, "I didn't plan it like this." "I know," I replied. She added, "You're not even asking if I want to come back if it doesn't work out." I looked at her then, really looked, and saw the fear under the defiance. "You don't offer someone the option to return while they're leaving you for another person," I said. "That's not love, that's storage." Her ride arrived. She left. I washed the cutting board, the cilantro green smearing into the water like paint. I emptied the trash, wiped the counters, and let the silence grow a shape. The shape felt like a clean hallway. Then I did one more thing. I wrote everything I was feeling onto a page in plain language, not poetry, not a letter to send, just a record, shock, relief, a little sorrow that the old future died, gratitude for the friends I could call, determination to not be the person who spends nights refreshing someone else's new life. It took 20 minutes and bought me breathing space. I folded the page, slid it into a book on the nightstand, and promised myself I'd read it only when the anger tried to sell me a story. I changed the lock codes. I packed a small go bag in case I needed a week at my brother's. I called my bank and checked whether any joint accounts needed closing. There were none. A decision we'd made years ago that now felt like the parting gift of past wisdom. I logged out of the home Wi-Fi, updated the network name, and made a new password that didn't reference anything we'd shared. I paused our meal kit subscription and the yoga studio membership we signed up for together and almost never used. Little savings, small control. I didn't cry. Not then. Tears would announce themselves later, I knew. Grief works on its own calendar. It's like a contractor who says Tuesday and shows up Thursday with a toolbox you don't recognize. An hour passed, then another. The apartment took on that echo of hotel rooms after checkout. Everything tidy, nothing warm. I put on a jacket and walked to the corner store for milk I didn't need and a snack I wasn't hungry for. The cashier said, "Long day?" I said, "It's turning into a long life." We smiled at the oddity of it. Back home, I washed my face, sat on the couch, and scrolled aimlessly. Every photo tried to build a past I didn't live in anymore. I deleted a few, then stopped. Deleting is another form of clinging. I set the phone down and watched the ceiling fan. The room was a mild temperature. The world didn't care how my chest felt. There's a strange mercy in that. Around midnight, a message from a mutual friend lit my screen. "Are you okay?" I typed back. "I'm good. We'll talk soon." "She told you?" The dots appeared. Then, she posted a photo with him at a diner. That made me laugh once, a quiet sound. Of course she did. A public declaration builds a bridge you have to cross even if the planks bend. I turned off notifications and tried to sleep. My mind kept making lists. Post office key, shared cloud storage, the standing monthly order of her favorite tea, the 2 vacation days we'd requested for a trip that now would not happen. I sent emails to cancel, reschedule, reassign. My outbox filled with tiny endings. At 4 a.m, I finally slept. It was the deep, hard sleep of a person who has done all the tasks they can think of and is waiting for the part of the story they can't control. When I woke, light had already found the blinds. The city sounded peppy, like it had texted me a smiley face. I brewed coffee, toasted bread I barely tasted, and made a list for the day that looked suspiciously like a list for healing disguised as chores. I started with laundry. Clean sheets, fresh towels. I replaced the photo on my desk with an old print from a camping trip with my brother. A river, a bent pine, a sky the color of an old shirt. I vacuumed like a man trying to erase footprints. I took the ring box and the car title to a small safe at my office because I didn't want to keep symbols of endings next to the olive oil. By noon I felt calm, the kind of calm that arrives after a storm when trees drip and birds act like they knew the plan all along. I opened the window. A breeze brought in someone's cooking and the far-off clang of construction. Life builds while other lives break. It's rude and reassuring at the same time. Around 2 I ate a simple lunch. An email arrived from the streaming service confirming the password changes. Another from the electric company acknowledging the account ownership update. I felt like a clerk stamping forms in the department of moving on. At 3, my phone buzzed with a name I wasn't ready for, her mother. I let it ring out. A minute later, a voicemail. I couldn't listen yet. Whatever script waited there would pull me back into a play I'd bowed out of. Instead, I put on a playlist of instrumental tracks and scrubbed the stovetop until it shone like nothing significant had ever happened over it. At 5, I showered and put on clean clothes. My brother texted, "Beer later?" I typed, "Maybe." He replied with a thumbs up and the address of a new place with mismatched chairs. It was good to know there was a bar stool with my name on it if I needed it. I tried out the smile in my bathroom mirror. It looked like me rehearsing for me. At 6, someone pounded on my door. Not a neighbor's knock, not a delivery tap. A frantic rhythm meant for old movies and fresh disasters. I froze, then placed my cup down carefully like the mug had become fragile. The pounding came again, followed by my name in a voice I knew too well. I opened the door because I wasn't afraid of her and because I was honest enough to admit I wanted to see what came next. There she stood on the doormat with mascara like storm paths. No bag, no ring, no car keys. Nothing but the same sweater and a face that had miscalculated the distance between choices. "He kicked me out," she said before I could ask. The words tumbled over each other. He said he needed space, that we were moving too fast, that the timing felt wrong, that he wasn't sure about the baby, that I'd misunderstood, that I shouldn't have posted the picture, that I was suffocating him. She swallowed air. I realized she had nowhere to go, and that our apartment was, in her mind, still a soft place to land, because I was still, in her mind, the softest person she knew. For a heartbeat, I saw the version of me that would step aside, hug her, make tea, ask for explanations, agree to pretend the last 24 hours hadn't happened. That version of me had gentle eyes and weak boundaries. I nodded to him in my mind and told him he'd done enough heavy lifting for a lifetime. "Please," she whispered. "Just tonight. I'll figure it out tomorrow." Her shoulders shook. The hallway smelled like someone's overcooked onions and her expensive perfume, which now felt like a costume a different character would wear. I didn't move. I let the silence grow until it had a clear outline around us. Then I said, "Tell me everything that happened after you left." She started talking fast, a string of scenes. The ride to his place, the welcome that felt rehearsed, the couch that looked borrowed, the text that lit his phone face down, the bathroom cabinet with exactly one toothbrush, the way he kept checking the door like he expected a second guest, the call he took on the balcony, the sentence that slipped the mask. I didn't say we were together, I said we were having a moment. Her story didn't ask for my sympathy, it asked for shelter. I kept my face quiet. Inside, a part of me wanted to shout, wanted to tally up betrayals like a bookkeeper, wanted to throw the past on the table and demand interest. Another part of me, the part that had bought flour and basil for a dinner we never ate, wanted to show mercy. Both parts held still while I reached for something firmer than either. "You can come in," I said finally. "Not because we're together. Not because I forgive you, because I'm not going to leave a person on a hallway floor, one night, the couch. No promises after that. In the morning we talk about the next place you'll go, and it won't be here." She nodded too quickly, relief flooding her face like a porch light. She stepped inside, small and broken and still somehow acting like maybe this was the prelude to a reunion. I pointed to the couch and walked to the linen closet. While I took out sheets, my phone on the counter lit with her mother's name again. I didn't answer. I folded the top sheet with the careful corners my grandmother taught me, and listened to her breathing slow into tiny hiccups. As I tucked the blanket under the cushions, she said, "Thank you." I said, "You're welcome." My voice sounded like a receptionist at a clinic, efficient, polite, not personal. I placed a glass of water on the coffee table and a small note beside it with the Wi-Fi network name crossed out, and the line underneath that read, "Ask me if you need to call someone." She saw the crossed-out name and understood. She pulled the blanket up to her chin like a child pretending to be asleep. I went to my room and closed the door. I leaned against it and exhaled for the first time in hours, the air leaving my chest like it had been paying rent and wanted a receipt. I set an alarm for the morning and sent my brother a quick text. "Rain check." He replied immediately, "Anything you need." I stared at the words until they blurred. In the dark, I pictured tomorrow. Not the old tomorrow, with brunch and errands and her laugh in my passenger seat. A new tomorrow in which I would carve a boundary so clean it could be used as a mirror. A tomorrow where decency didn't equal access, where kindness didn't equal permission, where shelter didn't equal welcome back. I promised myself I would keep that line even if the next hour was filled with apologies that sounded like choir music. Through the wall, I heard the soft hitch of her crying. I didn't go out. I lay down, placed a hand on my chest the way that therapist had taught me, and named what I felt. Hurt, yes. Anger, some. Pride that I hadn't become a version of myself I wouldn't respect. I let sleep come when it wanted. Sometime near dawn, I woke to the sound of her in the kitchen opening cabinets, maybe searching for coffee, maybe searching for the corner of the life she'd just tried to undo. I listened, silent as snowfall, and waited for the sun to make everything visible enough to continue. When I opened my bedroom door the next morning, she was already at the table sipping water out of one of my mugs like she'd never left. The blanket was folded, but the couch still looked rumpled, a reminder of everything that had shifted in a single day. She started talking before I even reached for the coffee pot. She wanted to explain, to rewind, to frame it all as confusion instead of betrayal. Her words came out in tangles. Anthony had promised stability. Anthony had said she was different. Anthony had made her feel alive in a way I never could. Now, in less than 12 hours, Anthony was gone, and she was here, with me, hoping the door to yesterday was still unlocked. I didn't interrupt. I let her drain her sentences until they sounded hollow even to her own ears. Then I told her the truth, steady and without malice. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had done its job. It had protected me long enough to cut her out of my accounts, my routines, my future. What I felt now wasn't rage, it was clarity. She mistook my calm for softness, though, and reached for my hand. I pulled it back gently. That gesture told her more than a lecture ever could. The day stretched awkwardly. She lingered as though the air itself might grant her a second chance. But when the clock crept toward noon, I gave her a choice. Call a friend, call your mother, or call a cab. But you cannot stay here. This space isn't your home anymore. She started crying, the kind of tears meant to melt defenses, the kind that once would have worked. Not this time. I had built a wall inside myself, brick by brick, during those hours after she left. I guided her toward the door with her bag in her hand, the blanket folded under her arm, and the key still on the counter where I'd placed it the night before. She paused at the threshold and whispered, "You really won't take me back?" I shook my head. "Forgiveness doesn't mean return," I said. "It means I won't let your choices haunt me anymore." Her eyes searched mine for hesitation. She found none. She walked out, this time without looking back. I stood in the quiet that followed, waiting for regret to claw at me, but it never came. Instead, I felt light. The silence wasn't empty, it was clean. I brewed coffee, sat at the table she had just left, and opened my notebook. On a fresh page I wrote one line, "Today I chose myself." Then I closed it, smiled faintly, and let the future begin.